Join me as I dive into the chilling world of crime scene investigation and attempt to uncover the dark secrets behind some of the most puzzling unsolved mysteries. It was early evening in North Philadelphia. The sun was still hanging low, painting the cracked sidewalks and corner stores with a dull amber glow. The neighborhood was alive, cars honking, people chatting across stoops, the faint hum of music spilling from open windows. It was an ordinary day, one of those moments that felt comfortably predictable. But by nightfall, that comfort would be shattered forever. Inside a small corner store near 18th and Huntington Streets, a 12-year-old boy stood quietly behind the counter. His mother was nearby, sorting through inventory, her hands moving in the rhythm of routine. For them, it was just another Tuesday, the kind where homework was done, dinner was waiting at home, and the night promised nothing unusual. But fate, as it often does, had other plans. Outside, just a few blocks away, a man and a woman were arguing. It began as a small dispute, something as trivial as a parking spot. Words turned sharp, pride flared, and tempers burned hotter with each exchange. A crowd began to form, the kind that gathers when tension thickens in the air. And then, one sound cut through it all, the metallic click of a gun being drawn. In that split second, the rhythm of the street changed. Fear took its place. A shout, a flash, and then the sound, a single gunshot that echoed between the brick walls. Then another. The chaos had begun. The woman screamed, ducking behind a car. The man backed away, gun still raised. And with each pull of the trigger, bullets flew without direction, bouncing off metal, glass, and brick. It wasn't precision, it was rage, spilling blindly into the neighborhood. Meanwhile, in that small store, the 12-year-old boy heard something strange, a popping sound outside, sharp and unfamiliar. He looked at his mother, confused. She froze, realizing what it was. But before either could react, a stray bullet shattered the store's window. Glass exploded across the floor. A scream filled the air, his mother's, followed by the boy collapsing to the ground. The bullet had found him. Neighbors rushed outside, voices rising in panic. Someone yelled for help. Another called 911. Within minutes, the wail of sirens tore through the street. Police cars screeched to a halt, lights flashing red and blue against the walls. Paramedics hurried inside. The boy was breathing, but barely. His small frame, covered in glass, lay motionless as his mother cried beside him. He was rushed to St. Christopher's Hospital for Children. The doctors worked quickly, stabilizing him. Against all odds, he survived. Back on Huntington Street, police began marking evidence. 9 shell casings scattered across the pavement. A dark-colored sedan was seen speeding away. Witnesses described the shooter only as a man, but beyond that, few could say much more. Fear kept lips sealed. In this neighborhood, talking too much could cost you more than you're willing to lose. As the night deepened, the corner store stood silent, its broken glass glinting under the streetlights, a reminder that life can change in the space of a heartbeat. Morning came, but peace didn't. The next day, yellow police tape still fluttered in the wind, wrapped around the corner store. Reporters stood on the sidewalks, their microphones catching fragments of grief and disbelief. The boy's name wasn't released, but everyone knew who he was. The quiet kid who helped his mom after school. The one who always smiled when he handed out candy from the counter. Now, his story was on every local news channel, described only as a 12-year-old struck by a stray bullet. For the people who lived nearby, that headline felt like a cruel understatement, because to them, it wasn't just a stray bullet. It was proof that nowhere was safe anymore. One resident, Jadonna Burton, showed a report of the bullet holes in her home, tiny craters in her walls from previous shootings. Another neighbor pointed out a car parked on the street, its windows shattered. "We've been living with this," she said. "You get used to ducking when you hear noise. You just never think it'll hit someone you know." The investigation stretched into its second day. Detectives reviewed surveillance footage from multiple cameras. The argument that sparked the gunfire was now clear. A parking dispute between a man and a woman on Bouvier Street. The woman cooperated with police, even turning over her weapon. But the man, the one who fired the bullet that struck the boy, was still out there. Police described the suspect's car as a dark-colored sedan, possibly black or gray, seen speeding east after the shooting. They urged anyone with information to come forward, but tips were slow to arrive. People were scared. In Philadelphia, residents have learned to live with the sound of gunfire as background noise. But when a child is hit, an innocent, standing behind a counter, just feet from his mother, it hits differently. It shakes something deeper. That week, the community held a small candlelight vigil outside the store. Children stood beside their parents, holding flickering lights that danced against a broken window. Someone placed a handwritten note that read, "He's only 12. Enough is enough." The mother didn't speak publicly, but those close to her said she was struggling. Her son was recovering, but emotionally, she was broken. The thought that her child could have died in front of her haunted every breath. The city's mayor issued a statement condemning the violence, promising action. But for many residents, words had long lost their meaning. They'd heard promises before, seen officials come and go, but nothing ever truly changed. As the sun set again over North Philadelphia, the same sounds returned. Cars passing, music from open windows, and the occasional pop echoing somewhere in the distance. People tried to move on, but that uneasy silence lingered. Because in neighborhoods like this, tragedy never stays just one story. It becomes a warning. Weeks passed, and though the boy's physical wounds began to heal, the emotional scars remained deep. The once bustling corner store stayed closed, its boarded window a quiet memorial. His mother rarely left home. Neighbors would visit with food or prayers, but she mostly sat by his bedside, grateful he was alive, yet haunted by what could have been. Police continued their search, following every lead. But without witnesses willing to speak, progress was slow. The streets had gone silent, not from peace, but from fear. In interviews, community leaders spoke about the pattern. How disputes turned deadly over the smallest things. A look, a word, a parking spot. How guns had become part of daily life. And how children, like this 12-year-old boy, were caught in the crossfire decisions they never made. Reporters returned a few weeks later, asking neighbors if they felt safer. Most said no. One woman said she'd moved her children's beds away from the windows. Another said she sleeps on the floor because it feels safer. The tragedy had become more than a story. It was a reflection of the quiet fear gripping entire communities. The boy's recovery was slow. Doctors said he would be okay physically, but the trauma might last longer. When asked what he remembered, he said only that he heard a pop, saw a glass, and felt his mom's arms around him. That memory, frozen in his mind, replayed like a dream he couldn't wake from. The shooter, to this day, remains at large. Police continue to investigate, urging the public to share any clue, no matter how small. But this story isn't just about one bullet or one child. It's about every community where gunfire has become the soundtrack of life, where families teach children to duck instead of dream, and where a moment's anger can steal years of peace. In North Philadelphia, the candles have burned out, but the questions remain. How do you heal when the sound of sirens replaces the sound of laughter? How do you move forward when safety feels like a memory? This story, like many others, is not about statistics. It's about people, about a child who survived something no one should ever endure, and about a city still waiting for the day when headlines like this stop being routine. If this story moved you, help us shine light on forgotten stories behind the headlines. Like, share, and subscribe to EchoSoft Vanished, where every story reminds us that behind the news, there's always a heartbeat that deserves to be heard.